In a peaceful valley, where birdsong blended with the scent of wildflowers, lived a young girl named Ella. Ella was bright, quick-witted, and had always been praised for learning faster than anyone else. But the more praise she received, the more arrogant she became, convinced that no one could truly teach her anything new. One day, Ella heard about a wise sage living deep in the mountains. People said that anyone who learned from him would change their life forever. Ella decided to visit him not to learn, but to prove that her knowledge was just as great as his. After a long journey through dense forests and rocky paths, she arrived at a small wooden hut. The old sage sat calmly under the porch, his eyes warm and gentle. Ella bowed. "Master, I've come to learn higher knowledge from you." But her voice carried unmistakable pride. The sage smiled softly. "Before we begin, take a seat. Let me offer you a bowl of water." He placed a simple clay bowl before Ella and slowly began pouring water into it. The water reached the brim, then spilled down the sides, running across her fingers. Startled, Ella said, "Master, the bowl is full. If you keep pouring, it can't hold any more." The sage set the container down and said, "Exactly. A bowl that is already full cannot receive anything new." He looked directly into Ella's eyes. "Your mind right now is like this bowl filled with what you believe is right, filled with pride, filled with the urge to prove yourself. When your mind is full, no matter how much I teach, you will not absorb it." Ella fell silent. No one had ever spoken to her this way. The sage stood, gently tossed a few sticks into the fire, and spoke calmly. "A person cannot learn if their mind is louder than their teacher's voice." He placed the bowl in front of her again. "Pour out half the water." Ella complied. The sage asked, "Is the bowl lighter now?" "Yes, it is." When you empty yourself of ego and assumptions, your mind becomes lighter too. Ella lowered her head, beginning to feel a soft shift inside. For the first time, she realized she had never truly been humble. That afternoon, the sage handed Ella a bag full of stones. "Carry this around the forest. Do not ask why." Ella lifted the bag. It was much heavier than she expected. She walked through tangled roots, climbed small hills, and crossed uneven paths. The longer she walked, the heavier the burden felt on her shoulders. By the time she returned, she was almost out of breath. She dropped the bag. "Why? Is it so heavy, Master?" The sage smiled gently. "Because you carry things like this inside your heart every day." He took out several stones, one by one. "This one is arrogance. This one is stubbornness. This one is the fear of judgment. And this is the ego that wants to be right." He placed the empty bag down. "When you carry these things, you suffer. But when you set them down, you become light. Only a cleared mind can receive wisdom." Ella stared at the stones, her heart softening. She finally understood that what weighed her down was not knowledge, but her own ego. The next morning, the sage placed the same clay bowl before her. "Pour the water." Ella picked up the container and poured, but this time she stopped at half a bowl. The sage asked, "Why not fill it?" Ella smiled gently. "Because I want to leave room so I can keep learning." The sage nodded with satisfaction. True wisdom doesn't belong to those who know the most, but to those who keep space within themselves to welcome the new. Sunlight streamed through the trees and shimmered on the half-filled bowl. Ella gazed at the water clear, calm, glowing softly. That day, she didn't just begin to learn. She began to grow.